We got a little time today. Let's talk about the 7 and 3 split. Now, before we get started, I could sit there and read you the whole thing out of this. But I don't want you all to hate me. I love these things. I wish I was sponsored by them, but I'm not. Now, if you really want to read it, look it up. $3.95 goes over all the hours of service. And once you start reading it, you'll get a coronary, because it goes over everything, yet covers absolutely nothing. You're like, well, how can that be? Because the gray area is built into this. Like I've said before, the gray area is there so the officers can be allowed to write the ticket, but it's also there so we can fight it. It's absolutely rigid, but there's a little bit of room in there. Now, I already made one of these videos. I haven't released it yet, and I hated it so much, I thought I would do it again and try to make it a little less convoluted. Because, well, I figured after watching it 2 or 3 times, and then almost getting a coronary myself, I didn't need to put you guys through that. So, let's talk about a couple things here. Roughly put, if you have a 3-hour break, you can extend your day, your 14 hours, 3 hours out. A 2-hour break, you can extend it 2 hours out. Now, you need to remember this. This is where people get in trouble. 14 hours is 14 hours, because you're basically putting a blank spot in the middle of your 14 and moving it forward. When I pull out the logbook, it'll explain it. But when I go, like I said, when I go through 395 here, it is just absolutely, like I said, it'll give you a headache. And it's a big section. It's got subparts and subsections and things about ELDs and all sorts of things of that nature. I would advise you guys to go through it, but take it easy when you go through it. So let's start, and I'll show you the logbook. So as we start here, we will start at 7 o'clock. That seems like a good place to start. Now, if you start your 14, this spot is fixed. So if you start your clock, everything before this is off duty, but at 7 o'clock when you go on duty in the morning, that is a fixed point. That is where you start your day. So your 14 hours goes till 9 at night. So let's start there. So this right here is a fixed point. Nothing here will move. This is, yeah. So you have to deal from here on. Now, let me get my trusty ruler out. Used to be able to buy these everywhere. These rulers are fantastic. They were great for paper logs, and they would work with the J&J color books. Let me show you this. If you had to figure out your 8 days real quick, you could actually, that would do that, but, let's see. Yeah. Today's date and 8 hours. So if you had to do it like today's date, that was today's date, and that would tell you what you're getting on your 8th day. They were really handy. Saved a lot of guesswork. But back to this. So you started at 7. You have till 9 o'clock that night. That is 14 hours. So say like you drive till 10 o'clock, and then you go and you got to pick up. Okay, so you've been on a total of 3 hours. 3 hours. So you are loaded at noon because that's when they go to lunch and finally decided to give you your paperwork. So you've been off 2 hours. So you can actually now, you have a 2-hour break. So let's show you how this works. This is where the magic happens. Now that 2 hours was a pause. That pause stopped your clock, but you had to do 2 full hours to do it. Now, since you paused it, you actually, your 14 moves forward 2 hours. So instead of 9 o'clock, it goes to 11 o'clock. Okay, so you drove your 8 hours, and I kind of screwed this up, but you'll see. You drove your 8 hours, and you were off duty for an hour and a half because you had to take a break, but you had a flat or something happen like that, or you were just screwing around. Now, here's the thing. No matter what it says on your e-log, you only have until 11 o'clock. So, you drove your 8 hours, you stopped in Dorkville for a break. Something happened, you were off, and then you could only drive an hour, and somehow you ended up in Atlanta. That's your 11. So see, you actually had another half hour, 45 minutes you could drive if you had all of this up. But you can't do it because you hit your 11. Now, had you stopped for 3 hours, you would have moved your clock up to midnight. Now, with the e-log, and what I hate about the e-log is if you were stopped, instead of the 2 hours, you were stopped for 5. You can still only drive till midnight because 14 is 14. You have a fixed point, but because you were stopped for 5 hours, everything slid forward 3 hours. It's confusing, I know, but we're dealing with basically 4 clocks. Well, 3, but 4. So I put this on daytime settings so you can see it. You have your 70 hours, you have your 14, you have your 11, and you have your 8. So this is the bottom one. This is what guides everything. This is your 14. This is your fixed. Your 14, your 11 overlays on top of your 14, and your 8 overlays on top of your 11. Now this one can slide back and forth 14 hours. This one can slide back and forth too, but if you take your 8-hour break too early, you have to take another half-hour break. So that's why a lot of guys will drive 3 hours, take a break, or 4 hours, take a break. That way they don't have to take 2 of them in one day. But this one overlays it. This is your base. This one is on top, and this one is on top of this one. And since this one is from a fixed point, these two slide in between these two. Now, like I said, is if you take a break and you split it, you still only have 14 hours because you created a pause. Okay, now that I've thoroughly confused you, what goes on after you hit your max driving time at the 11 o'clock here? Well, there's only one thing that can happen. You have to go into your sleeper berth for a minimum of 8 hours. So, you had 1 hour the day before when you went off duty at 11 o'clock to midnight, and then you had 7 hours the next day, making a total of 8. Has to all be on the sleeper berth because you did a split. So how many hours are you going to get back? Well, this is where people get in trouble. You only get back what you got on this side of the break. You had 3 hours here. So at 7 o'clock the next morning in Atlanta, you only get 3 hours. You can only to 10. That's all you get. And you have to do a 2-hour break. And at the end of your 2-hour break, you can get the rest of your drive time, the rest of your 14. Now, at that point, the next night, you don't have to go back into the sleeper berth. If you do the rest of it, you've done your 2-hour break, you go off duty, you can go off duty. Now, being as you're in Atlanta at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would highly advise you just to hang out till 9 because traffic will be less. But those are videos for another day. So, in a nutshell, that's a 34-hour break. Or not a 34-hour break, what am I saying? That is a split sleeper. Now, you saw the 8 and 2. The 7 and 3 is the same concept. But just remember that 14 is 14. So, this is where I'm going to show you where a lot of guys get in trouble. One of the things that trips people up is you're dealing with 3 periods. This and this cannot be more than 11 hours total drive time within your 14-hour day. But this and this can also not be more than 11 hours total drive time. So drive time period 1 and 2 cannot be more than 11 hours of drive. You take your break. 2 and 3 combined cannot be more than 11 hours total drive time, or a total of 14 hours. So we're in Atlanta. We went 2 hours and we're in, well, yeah, not Atlanta. And I didn't mean to draw that line. But after 2 hours, you can get going again. Now, I know I went over this rather quickly, and for the uninitiated, it is a, you're like, you just threw numbers at me and nothing makes sense. Just remember that 14 is 14, 11 is 11, and with the pause, if you were to take the pause out and condense it back together, it would still be 14 and 11. That's kind of how you have to look at it. And once you start figuring out the nuances of it, it'll get really easier. And you're going to find out that the 7 and 3 and the 8 and 2 are going to be 2 really important tools that you can use to further your day and help expedite what you do. There's been a lot of times I've used that, like going through Atlanta. I had a 2.5 hour load or something on one side, and I knew if I did the full 10, I'd be hitting Atlanta at 7 o'clock their time. But I also knew that if I did the 8-hour sleeper berth, I actually hit it at 5 o'clock. And I have just enough time to bust through Atlanta, get to the other side, and do a 2-hour break. You know, you can use it for things like that. A lot of companies don't want you using it because guys are really screwing it up. And truthfully, the E-log does not help. That's why I said it takes a little bit, because there's been times where you'll be out of time, but the E-log will do that break and suddenly show you have 6 or 7 hours. You don't have 6 or 7 hours. You have whatever is on the other side of that pause. Like I said, if you do a 3-hour break or a 7-hour break, you take that out and condense it, like I said, it can't be more than 14 hours. I'm throwing this at you real quick, but once you start figuring out the nuances, it's really easy. And you're going to find that at the end of the day, it'll really help you out, and it'll be a really powerful tool to further your day, and it'll really help you out a lot. I wish more schools taught it, but a lot of guys, I think a lot of the people in the office don't like screwing with it because they don't understand it either. Now, just remember, you can do the 7 and 2 or the 7 and 3 or the 3 and 7. You can do it either way. So if you're driving and you only got 5 hours that day and you parked and you did a 7-hour split, 7-hour in the sleeper berth, you can get up in 7 hours and drive that 6 hours. Now, when that 6 hours is up, you have to park for 3 hours. But as soon as that 3 hours is up, you get that 5 hours back. So, play with it. And just remember that it has to be on the, you can do the 2 and the 3 off duty, but the 7 and the 8 have to be in the sleeper berth or it'll show you in violation, especially on the E-log. So just a short little video, guys. take it easy, and I hope this video was a help. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.